Hey, happy Tuesday. Um, first off, I want to thank all of you guys who have been just so supportive, hopping on the show, sending your love via Cash App, Venmo. I really appreciate you. So I'm just gonna wait a few more moments and then we'll get started. All right, let's see. Hey there, thanks for hopping on. I think is that RM. Thank you for hopping on. Well, just I want to get right into today's topic. Many of you guys have, I'm sure, have heard about the recent situation with, with Lizzo a few days ago, where she broke down on Instagram after having released the song "Rumors" with Cardi B, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it because I think that situation in particular really gives us some insight into what is actually happening and going on just in a larger population. Hey there, is that RM? I think that's how you say it. Hey, thank you for hopping on. Thank you for those of you who have hopped on. Please get the likes up. Tag anyone on this video you think may find it interesting. We're going to be talking about self love today. We're going to be talking a little bit about mental illness and specifically just looking at the situation that happened with Lizzo and trying to learn some insight into it. So, as I said, she released the music video with Cardi B, Rumors, and then I guess a few days later, she did this emotional, tearful Instagram live where she was basically in tears, sad, talking about how she was fed up because people had, I guess, said different negative things about her, were talking about her image, and so she wanted an Instagram live to actually just share how that made her feel. And so I'm gonna pull this up a little bit and talk a little bit about it in this Yahoo article. So I'm gonna pull it up and share it for you guys, so we can go over it real quick. Let me see. Yay, thank you for joining. I appreciate you catching me live. For those of you who just hopped on, please get the likes up, tag anyone on this you think may find this helpful. Also, if you want to support this channel and just see more content from me like this, you can find me on Cash App and Venmo. I really appreciate you. I also appreciate all of you guys up to this point who have been so generous to support you, as you're the reason I keep on going. So, okay, let me see if I can find this. I wanted to read it a little bit. Okay, so Yahoo reported on this, right? It says, Lizzo has an emotional breakdown on Instagram Live following fat-phobic comments. So it says, rumors can certainly leave an emotional scar, and even on those with the toughest skin, it appears as though Lizzo is starting to feel the constant vitriol she receives from critics and haters, and she's had enough. The Truth Hurts singer took the Instagram live this week where she had an emotional breakdown as negative comments began to pour into her stream. For the most part, it doesn't hurt my feelings, she says. I don't care, the 33-year-old artist said as she wiped away tears. I just think I'm working this hard. My tolerance gets lower. My patience is lower. I'm more sensitive, and it just gets to me. So here it is. If you guys haven't seen it, I think this is a little section. Here's like a little section of the actual of her video. It's not the full video, but you can get a sense of what she's saying. I'm gonna play it for you right here, if it lets me play it. Will it let me play? Let me see.
I just think when I'm working this hard, my tolerance gets lower. My patience is lower. I'm more sensitive, and it gets to me.
Right, and this video goes on. It's a little bit longer, but you just get a sense. You kind of get a sense of how emotional she is. And of course, you had Cardi B and different people coming to her defense. If you go down a little bit lower, let's see. Later on, she posts something. It says, loving yourself in a world that don't love you back takes an incredible amount of self-awareness. and BS detector that can see through these backward societal standards. If you manage to love yourself today, I'm proud of you. If you haven't, I'm still proud of you. Life is hard, basically. And as we know, it says Lizzle has become a game changer within the body positive movement over the last year, unapologetically celebrating her luscious curves and larger than life personality throughout the music and career. This self-love warrior, yes, we know her as a self-love warrior, told Vogue last year that she wants to be an advocate for girls who are sometimes excluded from the movement's message. Now you look at the hashtag body positive, you see smaller framed girls, curvier girls, a lot of white girls, and I feel no ways about that because inclusivity is what my message is all about. I'm glad that this conversation is being included in the mainstream narrative, Liz will explain. What I don't like is how the people that this term was created for are not benefiting from it. Girls with back fat, girls with bellies that hang, girls with thighs that aren't separated, the overlap, girls with stretch marks, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you guys get the gist. And so, again, the whole premise of her live, I guess, was, people going in and berating her, talking about the way that she looked, talking about her size, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's one aspect of it. Many of you guys, or some of you may or may not know, this is, not the first time Lizzo has come on tearfully, emotionally sharing different, I think, mental concerns that she's had. There was this other thing that I saw, People Magazine. This was actually back 2019, where she had yet another emotional breakdown. And she actually admitted to being depressed. So I want to read this real quick because, again, I think this is really it's really starting to paint a picture here. So I'm gonna pull this one up. If I can find it. This is something that she did back in 2019, and like I said, this is just one. This is one of many instances where Lizzo has come online, and just talked about what she's been going through. Let me see. I'm on this. If I can find this. Okay, let me try this here. Also, thank you for those of you who have hopped on. Please get the likes up. Please tag. Today we are talking about modern women, self-love, mental illness, Lizzo, all the above. Just trying to see if we can glean a little bit from some of the most recent interactions. So I'm going to pull up this other. See if I can find them. So for those of you who just hopped on, I was mentioning, before the situation I'm sure many of you guys heard about where Lizzo went to Instagram a few days ago, tearfully expressing some of the different challenges that she had and just how she was basically having an emotional breakdown because people had been mean and people had been saying certain things that she felt like was just kind of put her over the edge. And she admitted in the video that usually this stuff doesn't bother her. Usually this stuff doesn't get to her, but her having worked this hard, she just felt like her tolerance was a bit low. So I was like, okay, I can appreciate that. Now I'm bringing up another situation that happened. This is maybe a year or two ago where she had another emotional breakdown and she actually admitted to being depressed. So, here it is. It says, Lizzle reveals she's depressed in an emotional Instagram post. This too shall pass, she says. It says, Lizzle is opening up about her battle with depression. On Thursday, the Juice Singer 31 shared a video on Instagram with the words, "I'm depressed," written over it. There's no one I can talk to because there's nothing anyone can do about it, Lizzle continued. Life hurts. The star further explained her state of mind in the caption writing, I self-love so hard because everything feels like rejection. It feel like the whole world be ghosting me sometimes. Sad AF today. Despite having a rough day, Lizzle remained hopeful of her mental state, sharing, this too shall pass. Of course, in response to her reveal, a number of celebrities sent Lizzo well wishes. You jack me every day, yada yada. So you kind of get the picture, and and here she is. You guys may even remember this. She's sharing. Let's see. So you guys get the picture, right? So she was feeling depressed. Feeling like the world doesn't love her. Was feeling emotionally down. So she posted about it. went to Instagram. And here we are again, fast forward a few years later, and similar situation. She's sad, having an emotional breakdown on Instagram, sharing how she is a, hardcore self-love advocate, but she's still sad. She's still upset. Okay, so let me see if I'm gonna pull this up. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because another thing. Oh, this is actually one last thing. Another thing that really got to me is, so here we have this emotional breakdown on Instagram a few days ago. She's in tears in the wig cap. Like, this is like a very, very like candid behind the scenes shot. And like I said, one of the things that I appreciate about Lizzo is that she's, is unapologetically herself. I can appreciate that. You know what you're getting. She's not trying to necessarily paint a facade like she's happy all the time. I think she's upfront with what's going on. And so I can appreciate that, because I feel like that actually gives women, modern women in particular, or women in particular who support her ideology and her message, it gives them a really real understanding as to what comes with it. It really gives them, I think, a solid understanding of like, hey, this is what it actually means. And so after having had this, pretty large emotional breakdown, we see her post this. Actually, nope, that's not it. I'm gonna pull it up. Yet again, another screen share. So like I said, so after all of that, here we go. We see her post this, and then we see her post this. Sometimes I get sad, and then, so again, here we are. Happy face, makeup done, hair done, she's obviously done up, and the tearful Instagram post that we've seen earlier, her makeup was all runny, her hair wasn't done. She had her wig cap on, looked like she had a robe on, like it was very much like behind, like very much like a, this is me raw, this is me at my worst. And then now we see this. And then what we also see, not too long ago, was this. I don't know if you guys saw this, but her twerking.
I hate this girl so much. I love it. Right entry.
And there it goes. So, okay, so y'all get the picture. So, when I saw the story drop a few days ago, I'm not even gonna lie, I had to sit and think about it. I didn't want to speak on it too prematurely, because I was like, there's a lot going on here. There is a lot going on here. Like I said, we see the ups and the downs. Now, with that said, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mental health professional, none of that. So I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I know her mental state, whether or not Lizzle is mentally ill or not. I don't know. Like I said, that's not my profession. And I'm not, here to diagnose that. But what I can say is that I feel as if, her personality, her brand, what she stands for, it gives us an incredibly clear picture into what is actually going on today not only in the modern world, but especially in the modern world amongst women. Because women by and large right now are actually struggling mentally. They're struggling mentally. And like I said, the reason I appreciate Lizzo, the reason I appreciate her going out and sharing the ups and the downs, and her actually talking about what it is that she's going through. Some people may argue that she's just, an attention whore. Some people may argue that this is just a PR stunt. I don't know. Like I said, we can only speculate, but I don't know. But I think what this does do is, again, give us a very clear and real snapshot as to what is actually what is the psychology that some women are actually struggling with? She's just, she's just one person. We all have bad days. That's not necessarily it. But like I said, I feel like, Lizzle, she represents so many women. There's so many women who look up to her. There's so many women that admire her. And I think she is in a very real sense a role model and also an archetype for what's actually going on out there. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I said I think her, especially her most recent emotional breakdown, gives us a real clear snapshot as to what is actually happening in the mental health concerns and some of the different struggles that women are having in particular. Actually, let me move this. So yeah, thank you for those of you also who have hopped on. Thank you for those. Thank you, Percy. I see your $2 super chat. It says, who is her PR team? I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. Now, if the goal of her PR team is just to make sure that she gets as much attention as possible, mission accomplished, because she definitely seems to be able to do that. If nothing else, like you're hearing about Lizzle consistently. And so, like I said, if that is your goal, is to make sure that she's always in somebody's mouth, then mission accomplished. So I see some comments in. Lizzle wishes she was smaller. All that intention mongering is overcompensating. Being physically unhealthy is not body positive. When your foundation is faulty, the building will always collapse on itself. I actually feel as if I may do a total different talk on this, because that's another question I have is promoting health fat shaming. And without me going too much on a tangent, it's like at what point do we create a standard that says, hey, this standard that we have is inclusive and it makes adjustments for, just human variety. Because like I said, not everyone's tall, not everyone's short. Some people are naturally curvier, some people are smaller. So it's like, I do believe in, having a standard that exists to where different body proportions are actually, are taken accounted for. But of course, like at what point do we accept those differences or the variations, but then still draw a distinction and says, hey, this is just too healthy, or this is unhealthy, and I knowing people, I know people, who are close to me, who are very, very much body positive and very, very much like, the BMI is fat phobic, or, it's racist, or it's misogynistic and all those different things. And I do understand that we do live in a society that very much can put standards on women and men that are unrealistic. And so I understand that, and I understand, okay, maybe there's a possibility of certain things being modified or changed to where it's actually more inclusive. Because the fact that you have fitness experts and different people who do get liposuction, you have even a lot of these stars who get liposuction or cold sculpting. They're doing things that are actually unhealthy in order to get these results. You have popular female YouTubers who, on femininity channels, or who are teaching women, who have openly admitted to getting liposuction, who have openly admitting to getting work done. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that that's bad in and of itself, but what I'm saying is, like, if a person feels like they have to go under the knife now to actually live up to some of these different expectations, then it's like, okay, have we actually created a standard that's unhealthy? But with that said, what does a healthy standard actually look like? So I'm going a bit on a tangent. But I do believe right now there's that tension, right? Where some people are just like, oh, we shouldn't have a standard at all, because having a standard at all is going to be fat phobic. It's going to be racist. It's going to be misogynist, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I get it. We live in a society that, it's been racist, it's been misogynist, or whatever. Like, that's true. But at the same token, for you to have absolutely no standard, I don't think that's healthy at all either. I don't. Like, me saying that someone's 300 pounds overweight and me celebrating that, I don't think I should celebrate that, because I could be cardiac arrest. So what is that healthy balance? I don't know. Like I said, I'm just talking. I think that's going to be a whole nother conversation. But I saw the comment that kind of put me on a tangent. Yes, it says it would be impossible to have a standard for the variety amongst the human race, but each of us know the state of our health. We need to address our own health according to our own standards. That is a good comment. I will say, and actually, I posted about this not too long ago when I had the interview with the owner of We Believe Fitness, and she had made mention of, I think it was not BMI, but it was body. What was it? I think it was body fat percentage. And she was saying for her, she prefers to use a body fat percentage because sometimes, if you just look at weight, that doesn't take into consideration that sometimes people do have muscles. Like, for example, an NFL player, a linebacker or whatever, or a quarterback, they may just off of BMI alone, they're going to be considered unhealthy. But if you actually look at the percentage of fat versus the percentage of muscle, that can be sometimes a better way that can essentially apply to people across all ethnicities, all genders, all sizes, or whatever. So, yeah, so that's just a total side note. But like I said, I think that's going to be a totally different comment. For those of you who have just hopped on, please get the likes up. Please tag anyone on this who you think may find this interesting or helpful. We are talking about self-love. We are talking about mental health. Thank you, RM. I see you. Also, if you like this show and if you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate your support. Actually, I'm going to need your support if you want to keep this up a long term. So you can find me on Cash App and Venmo, Shay Sade. You can also feel free to send in a super chat, and I really appreciate you. Yeah, you see, yeah, you're 6'2", 190, and BMI says you're obese, right? But let's say you're 190, but if you're 8 or 9% body fat, then it's like, okay, the majority of that's muscle. So that's just a prime example where, yes, BMI, it's a general metric, but it certainly is outdated and it certainly has its flaws. With that said, again, if you're 300 or 400 pounds overweight, I don't care what metric you're using, that's probably not healthy. So it's like, at what standard needs to exist in order for it to actually take into account human variety, while still making sure that people know what's healthy? Because we don't want to have a situation where it's like, where Lizzle, she went in a juice fast, and then she was body shamed for that. And it's like, she just went in a juice fast maybe because she wanted to feel healthy. Maybe she wanted to cleanse her colon or whatever. Maybe she just wanted to feel re-energized. Going on a juice fast has its benefits, and a person shouldn't be shamed because they just want to be healthy. So yeah, like I said, I think that's going to be a whole another topic of conversation. But to your point, so okay, so to circle back, for those of you who just hopped on, we talked a little bit about Lizzo and this recent situation where she basically went to Instagram, she was in tears because she released a song with Cardi B and people were saying negative things. I didn't see all the comments she mentioned in her Instagram live. She mentioned that the comments were fat phobic, that they were racist, and that people didn't like her because she was Black and fat. That's basically what she said. I also showed another post, a situation that she did maybe a year or two ago, where yet again she went on Instagram and said that she was depressed because she wasn't getting any love. Now, the reason I find this interesting is because she's a self-love advocate. And so, we see this all the time. Thank you, Michael Walker, for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate you. I see that coming through. I appreciate it. Again, if you guys are on, get the likes up, tag anybody on this you think may find this useful. But so the thing I find interesting about Lizzo is that she is a self-love advocate. Yahoo called her a self-love warrior. She is adamant and she is aggressive about self-love. And I showed the video not too long ago where she was out twerking in the park. We know that she's been known to twerk literally everywhere. She has a very bubbly, boisterous personality, and certainly pushes this idea that, like, I don't care. I'm unapologetically who I am. I am sharing positive vibes. Like, she always talks about sharing positive vibes, always talks about sharing positivity, and just wanted to be that joy. And so I think one of the reasons it's so interesting to me that she would go and break down it. And like I said, this is one of many. This is not her first time. This has happened multiple times where you see her bubbly, yay, self-love. I love myself. I love my body. I love my curves. Hashtag look at me. Hashtag twerk, and then she'll have a post where she's like breaking down, crying, emotionally distraught. And I'm thinking, okay, what is it saying about self-love? Is self-love truly enough? Is self-love truly enough? Or is self-love, is that just a cover-up? Is that really just a cover-up for, okay, I'm trying to love myself. I'm really, really, really trying to love myself, but in reality, I actually don't like who I am. And here's the thing about it: she alluded to it in her Yahoo, or in the her emotional breakdown back in 2019, where she says the reason I'm hard about self-love is because I feel like it's constant rejection. The world is constantly rejecting me, and so the way that she actually fights against that constant rejection is by talking and promoting this idea of self-love. Now, here's the thing. I have absolutely no problem with self-love. I think you should love yourself. You should love who God made, right? I have no issues with that. But the bigger issue to me is that, okay, are we actually getting to the core of what is going on? Because if a person goes around saying, self-love this, I love myself, I love the way I'm created, I love, the way I look, yada yada, but there are other mental or psychological or just emotional concerns that are not being addressed, then it's going to create chaos. And this leads me to the bigger point of what's happening right now is that there are a lot of modern women today who are just mentally unwell. And as I said before, I don't know about Lizzle's situation. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. So I'm not here to try to diagnose her. I think she is a great example of some of the different emotional struggles that women go through. And that's why I appreciate her being honest. But the bigger issue is that there are even a lot of self-love advocates who actually struggle with clinical depression, who struggle with bipolar disorder. So I put up just a few stats, just a few. You don't even have to go far to research this. And you will see that there are some concerns that are actually plaguing women today. So here's one. Let me see. Maybe I'm going to pull up again some more stats for you to look at, since I always like to come prepared. Also, for those of you who just hopped on, thank you for joining me. First of all, please get the likes up. Please tag anybody on this who you think may find this interesting. And we are talking about self-love and mental health and whether or not self-love is enough. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to pull up these stats here. Crap, why is it keeping doing that? Sorry, it's giving me some. Okay. Share screen. Okay, so here's one that I saw. I think it's this one. So here's just a few stats I wanted to read through. Okay, so this is from the U.S. Department of Health and U.S. Services. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And this is the Office of Women's Health. It says depression. Life is full of ups and downs, but when you feel sad, empty, or hopeless most of the time for at least 2 weeks, or those feelings keep you from your regular activities, you may have depression. Depression is a serious mental health condition. In the past year, women were almost twice as likely as men to have symptoms of depression. Depression is not a normal part of being a woman. Most women, even those with the most severe depression, can get better with treatment. Now, I want us to fast forward here a little bit. It says, depression is a serious mental condition. And in the past year, women were almost twice as likely as men to have symptoms of depression. That is an exorbitant amount of people. That is a very, very high amount. He said, listen, over here in Hawaii, in that culture, I'm sure she can get all the embrace and feels. The rest of the world is what it is. Yeah. Let's see, she breaks down because she knows her real truth internally. She's breaking down because she is currently unwilling to put in the work to change. Self-love, modern woman equals I'm too prideful to be a better version of myself. That is interesting. Like, really breaking down self-love. I mean, that's probably its own topic of itself. What does it actually mean? Because, to me, I always found it. and this is my personal opinion, I always found it a little bit curious and a little bit strange that there would need to be a movement around self-love or around something to me that should be innate. It's kind of similar to like, I don't know, me starting a movement around combing your hair. Like, oh, I'm a hair combing advocate. I'm like, that's just something that you should just be doing naturally. So I don't, like, I guess I don't understand the need to create a movement for something that is supposed to be innate. But if it's not, then it's like, okay, then what's like, to me already that shows that there's something going on. Maybe there's something a little bit off. But that, like, so that is just my personal opinion. I haven't really done a deep dive into the self-love industry. And so I probably should research a little bit more until I come to my full conclusions. But what I can say is that those who have actually seen, who are self-love advocates or are self-love experts or self-love professionals, this kind of behavior is not uncommon. This kind of either having emotional breakdowns, flashing, being triggered, and just burst emotional outbursts. These kinds of emotional upheavals, if you will, are not uncommon for self-love advocates or experts that I have seen. I'm not saying that's for all of them, but some of the ones that I have seen or have had a chance to listen to or observe, large emotional changes are not uncommon. So it's like, why is that? So as I said before, okay, so it is 1 in 5. What is it? No, it's women are twice as much or twice as likely to suffer from depression than men are. Twice as likely. I'm like, I saw that and I was like, dang, that's pretty crazy. Now another one here. This is U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I'm just going to read it because we're trying to share it. Sometimes it's a struggle. It says, good mental health is essential to overall well-being. More than 1 in 5 women in the United States experience a mental health condition in the past year, such as depression or anxiety. Many mental health conditions, such as depression and bipolar disorder, affect more women than men or affect women in different ways from men. Most serious mental health conditions cannot be cured, but they can be treated so you can get better and live well. So basically what they're saying, again, 1 in 5 women have some form of a mental concern. This is according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. That is 1 in 5 women. That's a pretty high amount. That is a pretty high amount. So to me, the larger picture of, Lizzo and, some of the different outbreaks and outbursts that she's had online, I think it actually speaks to what really is going on and some of the different challenges that modern women are having. And, as the U.S., what does it say? The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services shows, modern women today are struggling with mental illness. Many of them are. And this isn't to shame. I don't think this isn't to shame anyone, because I think there needs to be a space where a woman or someone can go and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm having these thoughts. Like, I think that needs to be more normalized. Or not normal. I'm not saying like it needs to be normal for you to have mental illness, but I think it needs to be okay for someone to actually express that, because too often what happens, and this is the case, especially in the Black community, too often what happens is that a person is unwilling to actually identify and say, hey, I'm depressed, or hey, I'm bipolar, or hey, I'm mentally unstable. And I think instead of it actually being addressed, sometimes we can just put little self-love advocacy things on, or we can say, oh, well, this person didn't get along with me well because they're racist, or well, this person doesn't accept me because they're racist, or because they're fat phobic, or because X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. When in actuality, it can be like, no, well, actually, no, you're crazy. Maybe the reason you're having relational issues, or maybe one of the reasons you're having a hard time connecting with people, is because you're bipolar, or you actually have mental concerns that come out in relationships. But if there is never a place where a person can come and say, I'm struggling with this, I'm feeling emotionally unstable, or I'm, sad, or I'm anxious, or whatever, if you can't ever actually say that, and you have to be a self-love advocate all the time, or you have to kind of just put a band-aid over it and you can never address it, then it creates problems in your life. Then it can create chaos, and it can create damaging, it can actually, create damaging situations and damaging scenarios. And so I think, in my personal opinion, I do think this is also one of the things that is not always addressed. Even when it just comes to modern women and their behavior in general. I get that there are certainly, people who body shame. There are people who are certainly fat phobic. There are certainly people who do not like darker skin, light skin, who do not like, that people have preferences, and sometimes people are mean. And so I certainly understand that. Now, I can say this as a Black woman, for example, and I can use the case of Black women, right? Where oftentimes we see, for example, Black women complaining that Black men don't like them, or that, dark skinned men don't like them, or just all the different complaints that we hear within the Black community, where Black women are basically saying, we're not getting any love and it's their fault. It's their fault because either it's men's fault. It's men's fault because they're racist, or because they are colorist, or because they are fat phobic, or whatever it may be. Granted, but what we rarely, if ever, hear is accountability. We don't ever really hear, hey, we're not getting along with these men because maybe actually I have mental concerns, or maybe because I could actually be bipolar, or because I'm mentally unstable, or because I'm mean, or because I'm actually disrespectful. And those actually are real things. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is not to create a space to shame women, but I think it needs to be said that there are a lot of modern women today who are actually struggling mentally. They are psychologically struggling. Some men are probably like, duh, I know this. I mean, I've seen men online suggest that or say that blatantly. But I think it's more important to actually talk about this, because in order for there actually to be true progress, you actually have to know what's going on. You have to have an honest, candid discussion. We can't always talk about self-love, but also not talk about some of the struggles. You can't also talk about, okay, body positivity, but also not talk about maybe some things that are being done or that a person is doing to be unhealthy. Like, you have to actually have a well-rounded discussion and look at all the variables in order for you to actually come to a full conclusion of what's going on. And so mental health is a real concern among modern women. It is. And like I said, I'm not a health professional. I'm not here to be a health professional, and I'm not here to try to diagnose anyone. But I do want to say, I think it needs to be okay for a person to say, hey, I'm emotionally struggling, I need help. I'm psychologically struggling, I need help. I'm spiritually struggling, I need help. I think there needs to be a place for someone to say that, especially within the Black community. And I can say this, especially among Black women, sometimes, who we just don't allow ourselves to do this. We don't allow ourselves to do this. We've been taught either to be strong, or even if you grew up in church, sometimes it can even be worse. You've been taught to be strong and then just put a prayer on it, but you don't ever really deal with what's going on. You don't ever deal with the insecurities. You don't ever deal with some of the negative memories or the trauma. Like, you don't get to the core of what is really bothering you. And when that is not addressed, then it continues to reinvent itself and reinsert itself in certain situations. And this is why I personally believe you can have movie stars, or singers or actresses, or people who they get to the top, they get all the fame, all the money, all the things that you can conceivably ever want, and they mentally crack. They literally mentally crack. They end up being on drugs, or they end up having Instagram meltdowns, or they end up having different binges, alcohol binges, because it's like they still have their own demons, or they still have their own psychological issues that they were not able to address, or even some of their own spiritual issues they were not able to address. And so again, I think it's just important. We got to start calling a spade a spade. We can't put terms over things to try to actually overlook what's actually going on. My personality, like I said, I don't know all of what was said towards Lizzle. I'm absolutely sure that there are people who said things and that they're mean to her simply because of how she looks. I'm also sure there's people who have something negative to say because they just don't necessarily agree with just how sexually explicit some of her stuff is. I have nothing against Lizzo. I think she seems like she's a really fun, bubbly personality. But, I'm the first one to say, like, I'm just not for like the twerking in public everywhere. I think that's damaging not only to women's image, I think that's damaging to Black women's image. I think it's like low class, honestly. I think it's not a good look. To me, it's just not a good look. And so I was going to look at something like that and be like, yeah, I have nothing, I see no problem, or I have no issues with, your size. If you want to be that size, that's totally fine. I'm more concerned with the fact that you feel the need to go any and everywhere and twerk all the time, do it in front of kids, do it in public environments. Like, I would have an issue with that, no matter what size you are. And so I'm sure there's people who are looking at that kind of situation and saying, my issue isn't your size. My issue is the fact that maybe you twerk everywhere or you think that's okay. Or you want to, wear thongs and wear them around different kids, and that's supposed to be acceptable. And so, and again, so this is where I'm saying I think sometimes some of these issues are conflated, and they should not be. They should not be. I think we need to be able to accurately address what's going on, and say, okay, and be able to make a distinction and say, okay, the issue is actually fat phobia, or the issue here is actually racism, or maybe here the issue is just, you got some crazy behavior, or all the above. But either way, in order for there to be any progress or any change, there actually has to be an honest assessment of what's going on. And what we do know, based upon the evidence, right? Like 1 in 5 women actually have mental concerns. 1 in 5 women have mental concerns. So, apart from all of the, body image, body positivity, the misogyny, the racism, all of those different things, I think at a core level, modern women psychologically and spiritually are having struggles. And I think if nothing else, there has to be a conversation where we can admit that. Because again, until that can actually be admitted and we can say, okay, let's put away the strong signal independent. Let's put away the I don't care, words don't hurt me, I don't care. I'm confident and I love myself and I'm beautiful and I'm this and this and this and that. Getting past all of that and really getting down to the core of how are you doing internally, we have to actually be real about that. And like I said, if you're a woman, you find yourself up and down, up and down, up and down. It's not to say we all have bad days. Like, I'm not saying that we don't have bad days. But what I am saying is that we also have to actually be real and accurate about when there is potentially something deeper going on than just, oh, a person doesn't like me because of how I look. Hope I'm making sense. It says, I was just thinking that psychosis by modern women is at an all-time high. It is pretty high. It is pretty high. I mean, just based on what I've seen, they said it was 1 in 5 women who were, mentally ill. And then I think they said women are twice as likely to struggle from anxiety and depression. Now, this isn't to say men obviously have their own mental concerns. But again, I'm focusing on women because my channel is directed mostly towards women. And so that's why I want to talk about it, because I think there can still be some shame sometimes. There could still be some fear associated with a person actually acknowledging and saying, hey, I'm not really doing okay. It's like I said, especially in the Black community. And we see this all the time. If you ever watch Kevin Samuels, you see this all the time. Women coming in and having sometimes telling these crazy, horrific stories. And then Kevin Samuels will ask, oh, well, did you have therapy? And they're like, oh, well, no, I just kind of, read a quote. And, that made me feel better. Or, like they'll just kind of like beat around the bush. But he's like, no, but did you actually deal with the issue? And so that's what I'm saying. I think they're just got to actually deal with your stuff. I don't know how else to put it. You got to just actually deal with your stuff. And if it doesn't happen, then it just kind of continues to just come up and it continues to follow you wherever you go. And like I said, we can sometimes, I think this is just people in general. Sometimes people can, try to couch it under something else. They can try to blame it on something else. And this particular situation, we saw Lizzle saying, hey, these people are judging me. They're saying they don't like me because I'm fat and because I'm Black. That's why they don't like me. But the reality is she's had mental concerns before, and she's even talked about that. So whether people loved her or hated her, it sounds like, she's in a place where there's still some things internally that she has to work through. And so, like I said, I just think she was one example of a larger problem that plagues modern women today and plagues some of us today, which is emotional baggage, and mental concerns. And this is just my opinion. I don't have any data to back this per se, but I think sometimes the different lifestyle that is promoted to women and some of the different things that women are encouraged to do, I think those are some of the things that actually cause damage. Um, for example, even if I revisit this trope because it's so pervasive, the strong single independent woman trope, where women are told or taught to be superwomen, especially Black women are taught to be superwomen. That can be incredibly overwhelming. That can be incredibly overwhelming. And it's like, yeah, no wonder you have women sometimes who feel anxious or overwhelmed, because we're not, it's not, you're not God. One person isn't God. And if you've told yourself mentally, I have to be strong and I have to be self-sufficient and all these things as a woman, there's going to be a time where that weighs on you. That weighs on you. And so I think that's just one of many examples. Secondly, I mean, just even the sexual liberation movement. I am a huge unsupporter. I do not support that, because I think to completely act as if there are little to no psychological repercussions for just having a high body count, I think is incredibly irresponsible. And women today are encouraged. They are literally encouraged to go and to increase their body count as if there's going to be little to no repercussions. And of course, we have Cardi B, who I think the media loves her because she is a perfect embodiment of this image. She literally celebrates being, a hoe, celebrates being a stripper, and yet still has this kind of housewife persona. Right? I mean, she was pregnant in the music video that she did with Lizzle. And so she pushes this image of being able to be a hoe and be a stripper and still be a housewife. And to me, that seems like that is the perfect example of what they want us modern women to hear and believe. You can have it all. You can be a hoe for your first 20, 30, however many years, and then you can still be a housewife. You can have the best of both worlds. And I think to act as if you can do that without there being any repercussions, any psychological repercussions, any even physical or spiritual repercussions, I personally think is incredibly damaging. And I think that's just one of many reasons there could be women out there today who feel a little bit mentally unstable. Because we have to ask ourselves, are we doing things that are actually natural? We're in an environment where it's like we are competing. Like we're competing against men when we go into work. Sometimes we're actually now competing against men when it comes to just different things that we're doing. It's like it's a constant environment of competition. And is that good? Is that healthy? I don't know. That's another conversation. But like I said, those are just some a couple of reasons I think modern women could be struggling mentally today, is just because there's certain narratives that we were told that are damaging. And then of course, going back to unrealistic body standards, they do exist. I'm not saying that we have to celebrate somebody who is unhealthy or is on the verge of having a heart attack. I'm not saying that. I'm also not for any standards that are going to be unrealistic or want to push a woman to, to binge or to go under the knife or to do things that are completely unnatural just to look a certain way. So, like I said, those are just a few reasons that women could be struggling today. But either way, it needs to be said that women are mentally struggling. Self-love, from what I've seen, the self-love, I think sometimes can be used as a cover up. Sometimes it can be used for good. Like I said, I'm all for self-love. I think people should love who they are. They should love who God created them to be. But sometimes that could be actually used as a cover up, to actually overlook the fact that there are deeper issues with rejection. There are deeper issues with insecurities. There are deeper issues with maybe just having a bad attitude that are not addressed. And instead of you addressing those things, you'd rather say, oh, well, other people don't love me, so I'm going to love myself. And I don't think that necessarily leads to long-term happiness. Yeah, we should be thinking more in terms of who adds what instead of who does more. Okay, I don't think I understand. Okay, but it looks like there's been a dialogue there. Okay, so see, you're talking about different relationship dynamics. Okay, yeah. So I'm seeing there's people going on in the comment section. But anyways, so I want to thank those of you guys who have hopped on. Again, please get the likes up, tag anybody on this who you think may actually find this useful. With that said, just to sum it up, again, my goal isn't to try to I'm not trying to diagnose anyone mentally. Certainly not trying to diagnose Lizzo. I appreciate her candidness, and I appreciate her willingness to be herself. You know what I mean? Because I think it gives us a clear snapshot as to what is the lifestyle associated with being a self-love warrior, a self-love advocate. What is the emotional well-being of a person who proclaims that? And like I said, she's mentioned multiple times, I struggle with depression. I struggle with feeling rejected, all these little different things as a self-love advocate, as a self-love warrior. And so that brings me to the bigger question: is self-love enough? Can a woman just, if she's insecure or she feels rejected or she has emotional trauma or psychological or spiritual trauma, and she becomes a self-love advocate, is that actually enough? Or does there need to be more work done to actually address what's really going on? My personal thing is that, if you actually have mental concerns, if you have psychological concerns, that actually needs to be addressed. I don't really know how else to put it. And instead of beating around the bush, or instead of even feeling bad about it, know that it actually is common. It is actually common today. There are a lot of women who are struggling mentally, psychologically, emotionally. And instead of hiding that or trying to put a label on it or trying to judge it on somebody else, accept it for what it is, and maybe even seek help. Like I said, therapy, if it's therapy, finding different, there's different support groups. There's different support groups in churches that I've been a part of, counseling, there's different things that people can use to actually deal with their emotional trauma and their emotional health. But I think it needs to be said that, modern women are having mental concerns. Men are too. I don't want to make this feel like, oh, this is all men are okay, because men have issues too. But we're focused on women today, and they say women are about twice as likely to struggle with anxiety and depression as men are. That's pretty damaging. So, anyways, again, thank you for those of you who have hopped on. If you like this show, if you want to hear more content from me, more things in general, I will need your support. So you can find me on Cash App and Venmo, Shay Sharday. Again, I want to thank you, Michael Walker, for your $10 Cash App. I see you and I really appreciate you. I also want to thank you for your super chat, Percy. And so, yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to address. My question for you: what do you guys think? Do you guys think is self-love enough? Is self-love enough? Are modern women mentally ill? I mean, I want to hear from you. I want to know what you guys think about this issue. So it looks like we got some few comments in. I'm like, I see there's a whole discussion going on that I'm not privy to, but so that's what I said. Again, women, don't ever feel bad. Don't ever feel bad if you feel like you are mentally struggling or emotionally struggling. It's rough out there right now for many people. People are, struggling for rent. People are, not even knowing sometimes where the next paycheck is coming from. And that can weigh psychologically on anyone. So don't be afraid and don't be scared to get help. And don't feel like you have to try to front. We see that a lot on social media. We see that a lot. This need to front, this need to try to present a certain lifestyle that is just not really real. And if anything, I think that can lead to more psychological issues that aren't necessary. So don't do that. If you actually do feel like you're struggling, know that you're not the only one out there. 1 in 5 women struggle with mental illness, and women are twice as likely to actually have depression and anxiety than men are. So if nothing else, take care of yourself. I would say, seek therapy if that's necessary. I know there's a lot of different churches out there that may have different support groups or different 12-step groups or things like that. They can kind of actually help give you the tools to start to actually deal with what's going on. But just don't hide it. Just don't hide it. Just whatever you do, don't act like it doesn't exist if it does, because that you're never gonna get anywhere if you act like that. So Mrs. How do you convince someone who doesn't love themselves of the obvious? Okay, I don't think I fully understand the question. Are you saying how do you convince somebody to love themselves? Is that yeah, I don't fully understand the question. But anyways, yeah, you guys, I want to hear from you. So let me know what you think. Leave your questions or comments or concerns. Just for their mental health. So Shay, I do believe modern women have things we have to address with our mental health. Avenues we can take to do so are limited, especially for Black women. How do we fix that? Good. That's actually a really, really good question. Really good question. Well, I mentioned this earlier where I think innate within Black culture, specifically is Black women, we've told ourselves, many of us have even been taught this, right? Depending upon where you came from. Like if you grew up in Black church, for example, like you knew, okay, you go to church, how you doing? I'm blessed. You know what I mean? Blessed, highly favored. Like we kind of have those little catchphrases. Some of us are told not to cry, or if you do cry, it's only in certain instances and very certain scenarios. Many of us were just told not to cry. We're just told to kind of be strong. That's just, I think that's just, many of us, we've been taught a certain way. And we haven't necessarily always been given the freedom to even say, hey, I am struggling here. I can say for myself personally, and this may sound crazy, I actually had to get around different environments. I had to start talking to other people before I started to recognize, like, hey, I guess there's different ways of being able to process things emotionally. There's different ways of actually being able to handle the situation. So I would say, I think a big thing first for Black women in particular is that there has to be a space where we can know it is okay. It is okay to struggle, because let's be honest, most of them already are. Most women, like modern women, period, financially, like I talked about this in my other video, most women actually are still struggling, like financially, they're struggling. We see psychologically they're struggling. And so I think let's just cast out the bag. Let's just forget this whole facade that women are doing this and women are, leveling up and women are, outpacing men and these men need to get it together. Like, let's just forget all that. Let's focus on ourselves. And if you're a person who is struggling, if you're a Black woman who was like, you're struggling mentally, psychologically, spiritually, you need to first humble yourself and say, I am struggling. I think it just needs to start there, because there can be no change if there's no truth. If you can't own your truth and say, I'm struggling with this, or this is what's going on, or call a spade, then how are you going to ever be able to address a sickness that you don't acknowledge exists? You know what I mean? And so I think that needs to be step one. Now I can speak for myself. I can say, I think for myself, and this is an ongoing journey for me personally. Again, a big thing that really started to help was to identify safe people, like really starting to have like a safe core of people that I felt like, okay, you are my friends, you're my confidants, and then working with them. Like I said, I was in different church programs. I did like different 12-step programs that just had a biblical base to them. I've done like different like counseling, things like that. Like I did a series of things that kind of actually helped me identify emotional triggers, to try to get tools, if you will. So that's what I'm like, I'm all for like getting a therapist, or even if you can't afford a therapist, sometimes just as a safe start, you can get like a 12-step, or you can do like maybe like an Al-Anon or AA or something where they give you tools to actually identify, oh, I'm feeling this way, or oh, I'm struggling with this, or oh, my life is chaotic. Here's why. And so I think sometimes just by having the right tools can really make a huge difference in actually being able to acknowledge this is where I'm at. But in order for you to even go on that journey, you have to first identify what is going on. And as I said before, if as a woman, if you've been taught, some of us Black women, we have been taught we must always be okay. We must always figure it out. We must be self-sufficient. Sometimes we can't even get to that point. And if we can't even get to the point of acknowledging that there is a deficit, then we'll never be able to address it. So that's what I would say. I think the first step is just starting, and I think it's probably a larger conversation to actually really figure out, okay, what are the things that could be happening long term. That's probably a larger discussion, but I think so many of us don't even get to step one. It's like we can't even get to we can't even go from A to Z because we won't even start at A. You know what I mean? So I hope I'm making sense there. Yeah, I've seen many people engage in people-pleasing behaviors because their self-love was lacking and it damaged their self-esteem further when people were not grateful. Bingo. And that's not really self-love. That's not self-love. See, this, and like I said, I can't talk enough about this because of the way that this has impacted my life. One of the reasons, again, I am so adamant and I am so passionate about about my relationship with God is because God is a God of truth. Like truth, not none of this fake, oh, I'm just gonna put a prayer on it, or I'm gonna act like I'm blessed, but you're really struggling, or you're cutting yourself behind closed doors. It's like God is a God of truth. So when you really have God in your life, you really have a relationship with Christ, you're able to actually identify what's going on. To your point, sometimes people say that, oh, they're really loving themselves, but they feel rejected, and so they feel the need to perform. They feel the need to try to present a certain way, to try to dress a certain way, to try to put on certain clothes, to try to wear certain hair, because they're afraid at any moment they could be rejected. And to face that rejection is more damaging than anything else. Lizzle, she even admitted this. She admitted this 2 years ago, where she literally said, I go so hard for self-love because I feel like I face rejection everywhere. So is she really loving herself, or is she really battling rejection? Then at that point, that's what we really have to ask. And only she knows. But to your point, I just think some of us haven't even really been taught how to have an honest conversation, how to say, man, like, yeah, I do feel insecure about this. Or, you know what? I see this a lot too. Like I see a lot of Black women who hate themselves, who they just really they do not like being a Black woman. They feel inferior. They feel inferior for how they look. They feel inferior because of the color of their skin, because of their hair. They want to be white women, or they want to be non-Black. They want to be anything but Black. And you can see it in how they act. You can see it in how they talk about other people. You can see it in sometimes even one-sided lust. And that's just, like I said, that's just one of many examples. And so, again, this isn't about bashing people, but it's definitely about there needs to be a place where people are just honest. And I think because we live in a world that is so about performance, and it's so about the look, and it's so about trying to appear a certain way, I think sometimes people, women in particular, don't even feel like they can't even admit when they're weak. Because honestly, if you talk to the wrong person and you admit that you're struggling with something, they're gonna put that stuff on social media. They're gonna throw you under the bus. They're going to use it against you. And so to your point, you can't necessarily always share your deepest struggles with everybody. Like you first have to have good friends, and sometimes people got some crazy, evil friends out there. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, like I said, it goes deep. It goes deep, but I think a person has to first identify the truth that's inside themselves. The truth is, if you look inside of yourself and you're like, I feel broken. I don't like who I am. I feel insecure. I hate what I look when I see in the mirror. I hate being whatever, a woman, or I hate being a man, or I hate who I am. You know what I mean? Like, you just, whatever that may be, until you can actually identify what is that truth inside of you, what is actually going on, then you can't ever change. There's not ever going to be any change. And everything you do up to that point is going to be to try to overlook or hide that deep, dark secret that's internally. And like I said, this is why I believe you got people who are literally movie stars and have all the money in the world, and they are sad and they are depressed because they haven't dealt with the trauma. They haven't dealt with the spiritual wound. And like I said, that is one of many reasons I love having, and I am an advocate, and I encourage everyone to have a relationship with God, everyone to seek out their relationship and their true identity in Christ. Because I'm like, it is God is a God of truth. I'm not talking about like, the weird, you go to a service and then they ask you to just pay tithes and there's no transformation. I'm like, you really have a connection with God, then there is truth. There is a spiritual transformation, and there is ability to actually look and say, wow, this needs to be changed. You know what I mean? So, because like I said, for me, that's how it actually began. The way I actually was able to be like, okay, there's how to deal with some of these emotional things. Here's how to identify this stuff. It was me recognizing what is truth. It was me having that spiritual foundation, working with people, working with, God, and being like, okay, this is what it is. This is what's motivating me to do this behavior. This is what's motivating me to act this way. This is actually why I did that. I said I was trying to love that person, but no, actually I did it for myself. Actually, I was selfish and I just wanted to make myself look good. You know what I mean? Like just having those real internal conversations. So, yeah. So like I said, those are just some of my thoughts. Again, I appreciate all of you guys who have hopped on. I know I've gone a little bit past what I usually do, but again, if you like this live, if you found it helpful, please tag anybody on this that you think may find it helpful. Continue to leave your comments, your feedback back to me. Also, if you want to support this show, if you want to see more things like this, if you like what I'm doing and you want to hear a more positive message, I'm going to need your support. Because as you know, we have plenty of platforms out there that have all the support in the world that are spewing garbage. So in order for us to even have a positive message out that I have to have the support. I have to have people who are willing to help grow with me so that we can actually, have these real conversations. So again, you can find me on Cash App. You can find me on Venmo Shay Sade. Also, I appreciate all of you who have been so generous to just hop on to spend this Tuesday evening with me. And I'm going to sign off. We will talk later. Bye.